Hi, my name is Molly and I'm a volunteer at the Framingham Public Library. Today we're going to continue reading The Bald Bandit by Ron Roy. Chapter 5. He's bald, Josh said, climbing Ruth Rose's front steps. Dink had run right home from the barber shop and called Josh. Now they were picking up Ruth Rose so they could go to Robin Road together. That's what Howard said, Dink told Josh. So that's why we didn't spot him at the high school, Josh said. Come in, Ruth Rose screamed from inside. Ruth Rose was sitting on the floor watching a video with her 4-year-old brother, Nate. Come on, Ruth Rose. I think we found the redhead, Dink said. We're going to his house. Ruth Rose jumped up and screamed, I'm leaving with the guys, Mom. Watch Nate. Dink and Josh covered their ears. Ruth Rose told Nate, you stay right here and wait for Mommy, okay? Nate nodded and kept his eyes on the TV set. Let's go, Ruth Rose. Let's go. Ruth Rose led the way back to the door and skipped down the front steps. How'd you find the kid? She asked. Dink explained how he hadn't been able to get the shoe polish out of his hair. That made me think about cutting my hair off, and that made me think about the barber shop. Who would know all the redheads in Greenlawn? Howard the barber, she screamed. The boys covered their ears again. I'm going to need a hearing aid like old Mr. Kramer, Josh muttered. Dink had looked up O'Leary in the phone book to get the address on Robin Road. They stopped in front of house number 33. It was a big blue house with toys and bikes and sneakers and basketballs all over the lawn. Loud music came through the front door. They walked onto the porch and stepped over a baseball bat. Four pumpkins sat in a row, all carved with scary faces. Dink rang the bell. Keep your fingers crossed, he said. A little girl opened the door. She had red hair and a face full of freckles. Hi, I'm Josephine, and I'm 5.5. She held up 10 fingers. Is your brother home? Dink asked. Which one? I have this many. Josephine held up 10 fingers again. Dink laughed. Do you have a big brother named Lucky? The music went off. Who's out there, Joe? A voice called. A tall, skinny teenager wearing torn jeans and a t-shirt came up behind Josephine. Dink noticed red fuzz covering his head like a new red lawn. Are you Lucky O'Leary? Dink asked. The kid looked down at Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose. Who wants to know? We do, Ruth Rose said. How'd you like to earn some money? I might, he said. We're looking for a kid who got the Green Lawn bank robber on video last week. The bank hired a detective to find the video, and we're helping the detective. He's paying us to get the video, and we'll split the money with you, if you're the kid, I mean. Are you? Ruth Rose asked. The kid rubbed the top of his fuzzy red head. Yeah, he muttered. I'm the guy. Then he crossed his arms. But I'm not giving my tape to any detective. Chapter 6. The kids stare at Lucky. Why not? Ruth Rose asked. The detective is helping the bank find the robber. You could be a hero. Shh, said Lucky. He looked around nervously. Then he beckoned Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose inside. Come on. Inside Lucky's house, the kids followed him down a hallway into his bedroom. Dink noticed that he was limping. His room had posters of basketball players on the walls. There were clothes all over the floor. Lucky flopped down on his bed. Listen, he said, I'm afraid to give the tape to the detective. What if the robber found out I handed it over? With my luck, he'd come after me. How would the robber know it was you who taped him? Dink asked. Lucky sat up. Because he looked right at me when he ran out of the bank. The guy saw me taping him. That's why I ran to Howard's to get my head shaved. Lucky scratched his fuzzy head. But if you turn in the tape, the robber will get caught. Then you won't have to worry about him at all. Besides, Ruth Rose said, we'll give you half of our reward. Right, guys? Right, Dink said. Is Lucky your real name? The kid shook his head. It's Paul. Lucky is my nickname. People call me that because I always have such rotten luck. Since school started, my dog died, my bike got stolen, and I broke my toe. I can barely walk to school. You can buy a new bike with the reward money, Ruth Rose said. Then you won't have to walk. Lucky smiled at Ruth Rose. I'm saving all my money for college, he said. Then he sighed. It seems like I'll never get enough. Lucky thought for a minute. Listen, that reward money would really help, but you guys have to promise to not tell who gave you the video. They all nodded. Okay, said Lucky. He got off the bed and limped over to his closet. He pulled a box from the top shelf. The box was filled with videotapes. He handed one of the tapes to Dink. Lucky looked embarrassed. When can I get the money? He asked. Maybe tomorrow, Dink said. We'll let you know, okay? Sure, that'll be fine, said Lucky. He pretended to zip his lips closed. And remember, you promised not to tell anyone where you got the video, not even that detective. The kids nodded again. Lucky walked them to the door, stepping around a pile of kids wrestling on the living room floor. Dink noticed they all had red hair and freckles. Josephine popped up out of the pile. Bye, she said, smiling at Dink. As soon as they were on the sidewalk, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose triple high-fived each other. We got it, Josh yelled. Dink slipped the tape into his pocket. Now we just have to call Detective Reddy and get our money. The kids hurried back to Dink's house. There was no one home. Chapter 7. The kids hurried back to Dink's house. There was no one home. Dink opened the front door with his key. He saw a note on the kitchen table. Dad and I are out shopping. We'll be back soon. Have a snack. Love, Mom. Dink was glad his folks were out. He knew they wouldn't like him playing detective. When this was all over, he'd tell them how he earned the $100. Josh opened Dink's refrigerator. What do you have to eat? He asked. Dink set the tape on the counter. There should be some donuts on the counter. He pulled the paper with a detective number on it out of his pocket. He called the number. Hello, is this Detective Reddy? This is Dink Duncan. Me and my friends found that video for you. What? No, we haven't looked at it. Okay, bye. Dink hung up, smiling. He'll be right over. He says we were good detectives. He told us not to look at the video. Josh was eating a donut. Why not? He said with his mouth full. He said it was top secret. They all looked at each other. Come on, Dink said, grabbing the video. They ran into the living room. Dink turned on the TV and slid this tape into the VCR. The first part of the video showed a big dog chewing on a rubber bone. Then they saw a girl in a bathing suit. She was laughing and running away from the camera. Next came a birthday party. Most of the people in the picture looked like Lucky O'Leary. Dink recognized little Josephine. Finally, they saw the front of Green Lawn Saving Bank. The door opened and a man came running out. He was pulling off a ski mask. That must be the robber, Dink said. He pressed the pause button. The man on the tape was completely bald. His head was shiny in the sunlight. He was wearing sweatpants and a sweatshirt, and he was carrying a gym bag. He had a surprised look on his face. That must be when he noticed Lucky taping him, Josh said. Ruth Rose moved closer to the TV. Look, he's got a dimple on his chin. Suddenly, Ruth Rose gasped. She ran across the room and out of the house. The door slammed behind her. Dink looked at Josh. What's going on? Josh shrugged. Maybe she doesn't like guys with dimples. A minute later, the door burst open and Ruth Rose ran back in. She was carrying her Elvis wig and her fake eyebrows. Ruth Rose stuck one eyebrow on the TV screen under the bandit's nose. It looked like a mustache. She held the wig over the bandit's bald head. Who does this look like? She demanded. Josh jumped in the air. Oh my gosh! The bank robber looks exactly like Detective Reddy. Just then, the doorbell rang. Dink peeked through the front window. Who is it? Josh asked. Dink's eyes were bugging out when he turned around. It's Detective Reddy. Ruth Rose snatched the wig and eyebrow off the TV and hid them behind her back. Josh pushed the eject button and slid the video inside his shirt. Dink stared at the door. He didn't think he could walk. The bell rang again. Dink looked at his friends, then he took a deep breath and opened the door. Ruth Rose slipped out just as Detective Reddy walked in. "Hi there," said Detective Reddy. He grinned at Dink and Josh. "Gee, you kids are clever. How did you find the redhead with the video?" Dink stared at the man in front of it. He couldn't believe it. Detective Reddy wasn't a detective at all. He was a bank robber, and he was standing in Dink's own living room. "We were just lucky, I guess," Dink mumbled. The man patted his mustache. "So where is it?" Dink wouldn't let his eyes look at the lump under Josh's shirt. "Where's what?" "The video. You called and said you had the video. So where is it?" Dink's mind went blank. He didn't know what to say. "Think, Dink," he commanded himself. Josh came to the rescue. "We hid the tape upstairs, remember, Dink?" Dink stared at Josh. "Huh? Oh yeah, now I remember." He grinned at the man. "We wanted to make sure no one saw it before we gave it to you. Come on, Dink." Josh headed for the stairs. "It takes two of you to get one video," the man said. "Well, it's in my mother's room." Dink held up his front door key. "I'm the only one allowed to unlock her door." Dink hurried up the stairs behind Josh. They ran into Dink's bedroom and shut the door. Dink's guinea pig, Loretta, started squeaking and running around in her cage. "Not now, Loretta," Dink said. "Where did Ruth Rose go?" said Josh. "I can't believe she ditched us." Dink didn't answer. He paced back and forth in front of his bed. He tugged on his hair. He snapped his fingers nervously. "Dink, stop. I'm getting dizzy," Josh said. "What are we going to do?" Dink stopped. "I don't know. We can't give him the video. He'll destroy it. Then nobody can prove anything. He'll get away scot-free, and he might even go after Lucky. We have to catch him and hand him over to the cops." "Do you have any rope? We'll jump him and tie him up," Josh said. "I don't keep any rope in my bedroom, Josh," Dink said. "Besides, he's bigger and stronger than us. He might even have a gun." "Need any help up there?" the man yelled. Dink opened his door a crack. "No thanks, we'll be right down." Dink grabbed a soccer video from his bookshelf and handed it to Josh. "Let's give him this." "But what happens when he finds out it's not the real video?" Josh asked. "I don't know, but we don't have any choice." Josh pulled Lucky's video out of his shirt. He dropped it in Loretta's cage and covered it with shavings. "Guard it, Loretta," he said. They walked downstairs. Dink tried to smile. "We found it," he said. Josh handed over the soccer video. Just then, the front door flew open. Ruth Rose was standing there with Officer Fallon and Officer Keene from the Green Law Police Department. Dink was never so happy to see anyone. "That's him," Ruth Rose declared, pointing at the man holding the videotape. "He robbed Green Lawn Bank." The officer stepped into the living room. The man smiled. "I'm a private detective, officers," he said. "Mind showing us some identification, sir?" said Officer Fallon. The man patted his mustache. "I don't have my wallet with me." "You don't?" Officer Keene said. "Detectives are required to carry their identification at all times." "Sure, and normally I do. But I left my wallet in the car. I'll get it and be right back." "His mustache is fake," Ruth Rose said, stepping in front of the officers, "and so is that wig." Everybody stared at the man. Suddenly, he grabbed Ruth Rose and held her out in front of him. "Out of my way," he yelled, "and I'm leaving, and this girl's coming with you." Ruth Rose took a deep breath, and then she let out the loudest scream of her life. "Ah!" Chapter 9. Josh, Dink, and the officers covered their ears. "Ouch!" cried the bank robber. He stumbled backward, clapping his hands over his ears. The minute he let go of Ruth Rose, Officer Fallon grabbed him. "It's all over, fella," Officer Fallon said. He snapped handcuffs on the man's wrist. Officer Keene pulled off the thief's fake mustache and wig. Now the man looked just the way he did in the video. He had a shiny bald head and a surprised look on his face. Officer Keene took him outside. Officer Fallon put his hand on Ruth Rose's shoulder. "Ruth Rose, are you all right?" Ruth Rose nodded. "I'm fine, Officer Fallon." "So where's the videotape you told me about?" Josh ran upstairs and got Lucky's video. He came back and slid it into the VCR. While they watched, Dink told Officer Fallon how it all happened. Officer Fallon laughed. "Pretty clever of our thief. He hired you to find the video with his own face in it. If he got rid of the tape, no one could prove he was in that bank." "He couldn't look for the tape himself," Ruth Rose explained. "The kid who taped him might have recognized him like I did." How did you kids get a hold of this video?" Officer Fallon asked. Dink remembered their promise to Lucky. "We can't tell where we got it. We promised." Officer Fallon smiled. "Well, whoever caught that guy on tape deserves a reward. Speaking of which, I believe you kids will be sharing a $5,000 reward from the bank." $5,000? Josh jumped out of his seat. He and Dink did a little dance around the living room. Officer Fallon laughed. "Ruth Rose here's a brave girl." She snuck over to her house and called the police station. Ruth Rose turned her favorite shade of pink. When Officer Fallon left, Ruth Rose did some math on Dink's calculator. "After we give Lucky his half, we'll each get $833.33 with a penny left over." "We're rich," said Josh. "Let's spend it." "Mine's going into my savings account." "Mine too," Ruth Rose said. "I'm saving up for a computer." Josh slumped in his chair. "Yeah, you're right. My folks would kill me if I blew $800 on pizza and ice cream." On Monday, Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose ran to the high school as soon as Greenlawn Elementary let out. They sat on a bench in front of the high school, out of breath. What did Lucky say when you told him he's getting half of $5,000? Josh asked. "Nothing," Dink said, smiling. "I just didn't tell him." Just then, the bell rang. A few seconds later, kids came streaming out of the high school. "There he is!" Ruth Rose ran over to meet Lucky O'Leary. She brought him over to the bench. She was smiling. "Ruth Rose said you got paid. Did you bring my $150?" he asked. Dink shook his head sadly. "Not exactly." "What do you mean, not exactly?" The three friends burst out laughing. "We don't have $150, but we do have this," Dink said. He handed Lucky a check for $2,500. Lucky's mouth popped open. $2,500? He yelled. "Where did this come from?" "That's half of your reward from the bank," Dink said. "We looked at the tape when we got home." Ruth Rose recognized the robber. He turned out to be the detective, only he wasn't really a detective. He was just pretending to be one so he could find you and get your video. Lucky blinked. "So you guys nabbed him?" "Yeah, right in Dink's house," Josh said. Ruth Rose snuck out and called the cops. "It was exciting," said Ruth Rose. Lucky stared at his cheek again. He shook his check again. He shook his head and grinned. "This is my lucky day. Now my mom can get the kids all their school stuff and have the car fixed." "What about college? I thought that's what you were going to do with your money," Dink asked. Lucky shook his head. "College is out for now. I'll have to work for a while till Mom and I can save more." Lucky looked at his check. "Maybe next year." He shook hands with the three kids. "Anyway, thanks a lot for this check. I can't wait to see my mom's face when I give it to her." Dink watched Lucky walk away, only he wasn't limping as much today. "I wonder how many college courses Lucky could buy with my $833.33, he said. Ruth Rose smiled at Dink. "I wonder how many college books he could buy with mine," she said. Josh stared. "What? You're giving your money to Lucky? But you earned it." Dink shook his head. "No, we didn't. We just ran around talking to people. Lucky really earned the reward money." "That's right," Ruth Rose said. "He's the one who caught the robber on videotape." Dink and Ruth Rose started walking towards Main Street. "Hey, where are you guys going?" Josh yelled. "To the bank," Dink said, looking over his shoulder, "and then to Lucky's house." Ruth Rose turned around and looked at Josh. "You coming with us?" Josh grinned, then caught up with Dink and Ruth Rose. "I wonder how many college meals Lucky can buy with my $833.33, he said. "Race you to the bank," said Ruth Rose, and the three friends took off. The end. Hope you enjoyed.